Hey, I'm Kelly Hogan. Welcome back to my Zero Carb Life. So I did not intend to record today. In fact, I'm about to get in the van in about 30 minutes. I'm going to pick up my kids from school and we're going to go visit my parents for the weekend. They just live a few hours away. But I wanted to come on here and talk about something. I just listened to a 2-hour episode of Diary of a CEO, and the guest was Dr. Anna Lembke. She is professor of psychiatry at Stanford, and she also wrote the book called Dopamine Nation. I've listened to her many times. I've talked about dopamine on this show before. I've taught plenty of lessons in my classes, but I took down 8 different points while she was talking that I thought I would come here and pass on to you in hopefully about 15 minutes. So let's do this. Number 1, she says, if you're dealing with someone in your life with an addiction, or, it's yourself. She said it's important to realize as someone, she is an addiction specialist, a psychiatrist who focuses on addiction. She said it's very important to know that people do not change until they experience real life negative consequences for their own actions. At first I was like, well, yeah, that's true. But that really applies to us carnivores. So until somebody acknowledges this joint pain is coming from that gluten, this belly pain is coming from that fiber, right? Until they experience, oh, this acne is coming from the sugar or maybe the dairy, or they start to put together the fact that they get weird itchy spots from egg whites. So many correlations. Until they put the dots together, they are very unlikely to change. So this is partly why it's so important to keep sharing the message of, hey, it might not just be age and genetics, right? There can be a huge connection between what we eat and how we feel and how we sleep and how we act and how we see this world. I think that's another reason we could also educate ourselves is if we know that having high insulin levels day after day after day from eating excessive amounts of carbohydrates is actually going to cause our tiny little capillaries to stop responding to the call of insulin. And we find out that, oh my gosh, that is the root of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I've seen personally what that looks like in my family, and I don't want that. And that's also the root cause of why my blood pressure is going up and sexual dysfunction. Like, once we know the cause and or we experience the negative consequences, that is the root of transformation. Takeaway number 2, when it comes to renormalizing our dopamine after we were addicted to something. So when we're addicted to something, let's back up. Our dopamine has skyrocketed, and then we take away the thing. Either it's taken away or we give it up. And then our dopamine goes into the ditch, way below our normal baseline. So you started here, you got this super high spike. Now you've crashed and burned, and life feels like there's nothing good left without the thing. Right? She says that part of renormalizing, coming back up to baseline, is choosing to do something you do not wish to do every day, or maybe most days. And if you are thinking right now, hello, that's called adulthood. Aren't we all doing things we don't want to do all day, every day? I mean, in a way, that's true. It's not like anyone wakes up and thinks, I would really love to go to work for someone for 8 hours, pay the bills, feed the kids, mow the yard, right? But in a way, I think a lot of us go through life seeing those things as have-tos. They are requirements. I have to. I don't even have a choice. Or you enjoy it. Does not qualify for what we're talking about. What we're talking about, well, what Dr. Lembke and Dr. Andrew Huberman has talked about this a lot as well, is the art or the act of choosing to do something that you do not wish to do, knowing that it is for your benefit and that you'll be glad that you did. And consciously acknowledging that, saying, okay, I do not like doing push-ups. Here it is, first thing in the morning. I choose to do the push-ups. I know it's good for my muscles, so I'm doing the push-ups. Let's go. And then you do it. You have to actually carry through with it. So for me, one of those things is My personal preference would be I wake up in the morning and I would love to lay in bed for an hour with, I have this super, it feels like bunny fur blanket. I would love to sit up in bed with pillows all piled up behind me and have someone bring me coffee to my nightstand and just sit and scroll on my phone or read a book for an hour or two. That sounds amazing. And I've literally never done that. So every single morning I have a rule that I have to get up. I do feed my children. I see that as a little bit of a have to. And that's okay. We have things in life we feel like must be done. I don't mind. I do it because I want them to eat well and go to school with full bellies, lots of meat and eggs. Great. It's a win for both of us. But then after that, I tell myself I choose to walk 2 miles instead of just sitting here and drinking coffee in the morning. If I want my coffee, my personal rule is, and I have reasons behind it, it allows my cortisol to come down in the morning. It's a big motivator for me to get the 2 miles done, to get morning sunlight in my eyes, to eat a carnivore breakfast. And then if I want coffee, and I do, then I will drink the coffee. But first, I sort of have to earn it by doing these things that I truly believe are for my benefit. So I say to myself, I choose to walk 2 miles. And contrary to popular belief, I do not just wake up wanting to do that. I would definitely rather just lay in bed and scroll my phone and drink coffee all day. For real. But I choose it. By doing that, Dr. Andrew Huberman says that it grows a part of our brain that is responsible for willpower and self-discipline. So if you want more willpower and self-discipline and you feel like, "Oh, I just don't have any, I say I'm going to do something, I don't do something." The heart of that they have found in the brain when someone is activating willpower and self-discipline is the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It doesn't really matter. That is just a part of the brain that is activated when we say, "Oh, I'm going to have grit. I'm going to do the darn thing. I don't really want to do it." And it can be activated. And the more you activate it, the more easily we can engage it, light it up, grow it. This part of the brain can become stronger. And that's pretty cool. Okay, third point. I mentioned this in a recent video about choose your hard, but Dr. Anna Lemke raised the point that this life is inherently quite painful, and she would know. She lost her own daughter at a very young age, and she says there is no escaping this fact. She said that many addicts constantly pursue comfort. I do have a very addictive personality, and I can attest that I would love to just constantly pursue comfort. And I guess it's because an addict has a tendency that when we get a dopamine hit, we go, "Oh, yes. What caused that little ping?" And we go, "Oh, donuts? Well, then I will take more of that." And we become hooked on something. So when something is very comfortable, whether it's that laying in bed with that rabbity feeling blanket or getting a massage or something that causes our dopamine to go, "Yes," then we can get like, "That's it. More of that, all of it now." Every day, we can get really hooked. She says that there's a big overlap between people who are very easily addicted and this constant pursuit of thinking that life must be comfortable. And she's like, we have to accept it's not going to be. And she said that as soon as her daughter passed, she, as a psychiatrist, a therapist, wanted to find a way to fix this. We have to fix this. This is awful. How do I fix this? And there was no fix. She said she had to eventually come to an acceptance of this will hurt forever. For the rest of my life, this will not feel okay. And I'm going to have to stop not being okay with that. I'm going to have to stop trying to numb that away or fix it because maybe it's not broken. It hurts. And maybe that's how life is just going to be sometimes. Now, for me, that directly ties into my faith. And I know that this life is not all there is for me. Thank you. I also trust God to walk me through those hard times. So this is very much faith related. But when it comes to carnivore and addiction, I think there is just a place to say, hey, I can stop thinking that there's something wrong with me or wrong with this life or even wrong with God when I feel pain, because this isn't heaven. I'm not there yet. So I don't have to numb it away with sugar or alcohol or drugs or anything else. That's just kind of how life is going to be some days. So I can feel it and accept that this too is part of life and part of being human. It doesn't mean I like it, but I can accept it. All right, really quick story. My husband and I, when we were pretty young, newlyweds, this was back, I don't know, we'd been married a couple years, 2004. We decided to take a trip to New York with two of our good friends. And I was the oldest of the group. I'm older than my husband and the two friends. And I did a little research about this trip. Here was the trip. We wanted to go up to New York, Times Square, New Year's Eve. We wanted to be there. We were in our 20s. We wanted to see that ball drop in person. Well, I did some reading and I found out this is not going to be like, oh, let's just walk up and watch the ball drop. So that morning I said to them, I said, listen, I've looked into this. This is going to be awful. It's cold. They're calling for rain. Once you get into the little fencing area, you're there for about 7-8 hours. You cannot leave. There are no bathrooms. If you get sick, you're just going to get sick right there. It's going to be terrible. But guess what? We're here. We're doing this. I said we have to look for a few good things along the way. We might see someone famous. We might hear a song that we like. There will probably be confetti. But at the end, no matter how awful it is, we're going to leave here with a cool story. No one can take that from us. This is a trip where we will be able to say, hey, I did that. I went there. I did that. And if you're going through a really awful time right now, first of all, I'm so sorry. This too shall pass. But think about this. You're going to come out of this with an amazing testimony. Maybe you're going through the worst withdrawals ever, and someday you're going to be able to lead somebody else through that. Maybe you are going through your own health journey and you are going to have the coolest story. It's going to be awful. It might rain. You might not be able to leave. You're going to be in a fence for a while, and it's going to be a tough time period. But recognizing that it will not be this hard forever, recognizing that you'll have a cool story, a cool testimony, some cool memories, and a way to help other people afterwards might help you get through it. All right, the next one's quick. She said, change happens when the pain of staying the same becomes heavier or worse than the pain of having to make a change. And I think I said that before in a recent video, but if you are at like rock bottom or headed there quickly, you're feeling desperate, please don't see that as a bad thing. Desperation can be a gift. It is the spark that can fuel transformation. And it is the very reason that I actually listened when my doctor told me to cut out carbs. If I weren't desperate and I was more like my husband who is not desperate, I would probably still be eating a standard American diet and having standard American health problems. My desperation was actually a gift. All right, the next one is the real reason I'm making this video. I had not heard this before exactly like this. Have any of you ever been told, once an addict, always an addict? That part I have heard before. And I don't like it because I no longer look like a sugar addict. I don't act like a sugar addict. I don't feel like a sugar addict. So don't tell me I'm a sugar addict. All right, here's the study. I don't know about you. I don't love rat studies, but I thought it was cool. They took some rats. They allowed them to live a normal little rat life with normal rat food, normal rat bedding, normal rat water. And then at some point they decided, today's the day, we're going to give the rats cocaine. And they did. On day one, the rats continued normal rat behavior. They kept ramping up the number of days. At around the 2-week mark, the rats did not have normal behavior. In fact, they would endure pain in order to get the cocaine. They were given mild shock therapy. Quite frankly, I don't know how mild. I like to think it was kind of mild, but they would withstand it. They stopped eating their food and water and sleeping. They stopped mating. They just ran around in a frenzy trying to get more cocaine. After about 2 weeks, when these rats were unhinged, complete, total addicts, then they cut them off, no more cocaine. The rats eventually returned to their normal behavior. They were clean. As clean as a rat's going to be, I guess. All right. Much time passes. Dr. Anna Lemke says it's like the equivalent of decades in rat time. These rats completely back to normal, but they could tell which ones were the rats that had, the former addicts. Then they bring in some fresh rats, mix them all together. They give them one hit of cocaine to all of the rats. These new fresh rats, they didn't change their behavior at all. This was their first hit. It takes time, she says, to really ramp up addiction. Those rats who had been addicted decades ago in rat time, she said, hit number one. As soon as they got their little rat noses back into the cocaine, they were full-blown crazed addicts all over again. The pathways to remembering, bing, I know what this is, were lying in wait all that time. Folks, this is why I treat myself with kid gloves. I didn't have a rat study to back this up, but I've had a few things through the years that said to me, you, my dear, you're walking a very fine line. You have been an addict before. I've sat alone and binge eaten donuts to the point where I wanted to be sick. I wanted to be sick. You are never going to be able to moderate like somebody who has not been a sugar addict. It's like I knew it in my soul, but this confirms it. Those neural pathways, that feeling of I know this dopamine hit, it's still there. So this is why you have never seen me advertise for a flavored electrolyte or a sweetened anything or the new flavor of bar that has any type of sweetener or fruit or anything like that, because I can't taste it. I won't taste it. And the reason I'm such a good little carnivore is because I'm an abstinent carnivore. I learned very early it has to be abstinence for me. And just like somebody who used to have a horrible alcohol problem can very quickly bring that back even after decades of being clean, if they take one shot, they don't have to ramp up in the same way. Neither would I. I was a few years. Should I tell you this? Okay, I'll tell you this. I was actually several years into my carnivore journey when I accepted a mint sugar-free Altoid. If you've ever had one, then you know they are not sweet tasting when compared to candy or something, right? Like it's strong, it's minty. You wouldn't taste it and go, well, that's sweet. But it turns out that I can't even handle that. I found myself thinking about more and more Altoids. So I thought, well, I'll finish this little box, this little metal box of Altoids. And then I got another one and another one. Full-blown carnivore at that point. Couldn't stop eating Altoids and convinced myself that's okay. They're not sweet. Nothing bad is happening. I probably went through about 30 boxes of Altoids trying to stop Altoids, and it caused me to start thinking about other things too, and I was like, this is madness. I'm literally addicted to sugar-free Altoids. So there is something within me that can become very hooked on things, but I have good news. The next note that I took down was, if you have a very addictive personality where you can get just hooked on anything, Altoids. There's good news. You can get addicted to amazing things as well. So when we get that dopamine flood into our brain, when we see a commercial about a food that we're craving, and it makes us go, ooh, dopamine. We're in seeking mode. I must get that thing. I must get that thing. This is called anticipatory dopamine. And while that dopamine is in our system, we can use it for good. And I have talked about this before. It's the anticipatory dopamine hack. We can, in that moment, choose it to eat the steak, have some eggs, take a walk, pray, journal, talk it out, get sunshine. Whatever behavior you choose while that dopamine is telling you, go get something. And it's not telling you to get sunshine and steak. I know that. So it's going to feel like, but that's not what I want. Do it anyway. Choose it. And you will start to crave that more. People with addictive personalities can very easily become addicted to sugar and alcohol. And we can also become addicted to taking walks and sunshine. We can go, gosh, that felt good. I want more of that. Lifting weights with dopamine in your brain. That felt good. I feel that high afterwards. I want more of that. I want to be addicted to good things. I want to be as addicted to my time in prayer, in Bible study, and with the Lord as I ever was to Entenmann's muffins. I want to crave sunshiny walks as much as I ever did cheesy processed puffs, right? And we can. We can really rewire our brain. It takes some practice. I've gone way over 15 minutes, but I'm about to wrap it up. I heard this part from Dr. Andrew Huberman when he had Dr. Anna Lemke on his show. And they talked about ways to naturally elevate your dopamine without having to do crazy things. So they said, yes, if you sit in an ice bath and you go, woo, I choose this, you're going to get dopamine afterwards. Also, you had to sit in an ice bath. Or you go to the gym and you break a personal record. I lifted heavier than I've ever lifted before. You're going to get a dopamine hit. Awesome. Are there any less extreme ways? Those things are not bad. Okay. I'm just saying something I could do on the daily. And yes, there are. It turns out it is very hard to produce healthy amounts of dopamine without vitamin D, sunshine. So that sunshiny walk is actually quite magical. There's a reason you feel so much better afterwards, at least 100%. I do. Some people do take a vitamin D supplement, but honestly, if you could just get outside and get sunlight into your eyes, sunlight onto your face. Right now it is cold here, despite the fact that I'm wearing this new super happy campy t-shirt. I need a coat outside. I will bundle up, but I will also allow at least some of my skin to get sunshine exposure. Another thing, it is very hard to make dopamine when you are sleep deprived. So get good sleep, whether you have to mouth tape, wear blue blockers, turn the lights down in the house, switch your phone screen to red, go to bed early, have a super dark room, make it cold in there, whatever you have to do. Please prioritize your sleep. It's good for so many reasons, including weight loss, but also for our dopamine and how we feel. And then Dr. Huberman says that the more we move throughout the day, just the less sitting we do, the more likely you are to have higher dopamine levels, like healthy, not spiked. It's not going to spike your dopamine like the cocaine with the rats. It is just going to help you have a healthy level of dopamine. So yes, getting those steps in, getting up once an hour if you have to sit a lot, getting up and moving around, going up and down the steps once, or taking 30 seconds to do some push-ups or squats. Just movement. It's a good thing. And the last thing he recommends for elevating dopamine in a very healthy way is getting in an amino acid called tyrosine. He said tyrosine is required for elevating our dopamine levels to a healthy amount. So I will link to the best source of tyrosine. Just kidding. It's not a supplement that you take. Maybe you can. There's no need, carnivores. The highest, best sources of tyrosine on earth: beef, pork, fish, chicken, and some cheeses like Parmesan. If you've ever tried Parmesan, you know that's probably true. This might be also why vegans do struggle to feel happy. There is a documented correlation between vegans and mental health struggles. They're not able to produce as much dopamine without tyrosine, and tyrosine is mostly in animal products. I'm not trying to put vegans down. I just want them to feel better and maybe get some tyrosine. So that's it. It's time for me to get in the car. I went about twice as long as I said I would. Sum it up, you can use your desperation as an asset. You can also use your addictive personality as an asset. Many of us with those addictive personalities can also be very passionate. We can get hooked on cool things. We'll come out of it, our tragedy and our struggle, we can come out of it with really cool stories and help out other people. And we can get just as excited about those walks and about meat and about talking carnivore as we ever did about seeking comfort and laying on a couch and eating our favorite garbage foods. We can use sunlight and sleep and tyrosine through meat to make ourselves feel better so that we do feel like helping other people into this amazing lifeboat. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.